introducing Carl, who is also a founding board member of Pittsburgh United, but is one of the best organizers in Pittsburgh, vice chair, I think now, right, of the Hill District Consensus Group, and as I said, has been on the board of Pittsburgh United since its founding back in 2007. Thank you.
As Sam already mentioned, Pittsburgh United kind of started around the struggle in my neighborhood, the Hill District. The Hill District is the historic location where black families came to Pittsburgh and stayed in Pittsburgh in the 1940s, 30s, 20s. It was the center of the black community for a long period of time until about 8,000 people were pushed out of our community between 1957 and 1962 to build this thing called the Civic Arena, which was the home for the Civic Light Opera, the Ice Capades, and then later on when the Penguins started in 67, it became their home. But around 2006, 2007, the Penguins threatened to leave Pittsburgh. And when they threatened to leave Pittsburgh, they said, we're going to leave Pittsburgh unless the government builds us a new arena. Once that happened, and prior to when that happened, in the community, we had started looking at what was happening in Los Angeles with the Los Angeles Community Benefits Agreement. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we were trying to study community benefits agreements and try to understand what they were and how they would work in our neighborhood. So we started to assemble some demands on how to move forward. By 2007, there was an agreement between the city and the Penguins to build them a new stadium, and that's when we really started organizing in earnest. We actually had two coalitions around the community benefits agreement. The one was started by the group I'm in, the Hill District Consensus Group, and it was called the One Hill CBA Coalition, and it was a coalition that met on a regular basis, and we argued every meeting because we never agreed on everything, but it was pretty good. And the other coalition that was started was Pittsburgh United. The way Pittsburgh United started, there was a foundation like some of you guys, a number of foundations came together and had a thing called the Dream Fund. And the Dream Fund was supposed to support people working around community benefits agreements, particularly in Pennsylvania, but maybe in other states too, I'm not really sure. But there was a grant that was put out there. So from the community, we applied for the grant, but we didn't get it because we didn't have any unions. So then we went in with Pittsburgh United, because Pittsburgh, there were unions, like particularly the SEIU and Unite Here at that time, were active in the neighborhood. So we went in with them to go after the Dream Fund, and the Dream Fund was awarded, and that's how Pittsburgh United was created. One other thing to mention, just like Sam said around the agreement that the workers in the old arena would keep their jobs and move to the new arena, one of the community agreements is the community, we agreed we would support that. Workers keep their job, workers move to the new arena, workers keep their seniority, and workers keep their union. So the people in the community agreed to that, and the unions agreed to support the struggle in the community. So it was a mutual thing. But there were two coalitions, a Black Hill District Neighborhood Organization called the One Hill CBA Coalition, and Pittsburgh United, which we in the neighborhood saw as allies for our CBA struggle in the neighborhood. There were also two models. The CBA Coalition and the Consensus Group model was to organize residents and neighborhood groups in the neighborhood. And we had about 100 organizations from the neighborhood, but it included organizations like Boy Scout Troop 93. They weren't all like large organizations, but they were all part of the coalition and had votes on the decisions that we had to make. And on the other hand, Pittsburgh United was organized as a coalition, as was mentioned, faith, labor, union, community, environmental groups. There were two strategies. Our strategy in the community was more to build power at the neighborhood level by organizing residents. The coalition type strategy was to build power, became to build power at City Hall by supporting friendly politicians. So those two strategies were kind of different, not necessarily at odds though, and I'll talk about that some more, but they were different. There are almost no black organizations in Pittsburgh United. The unions are the big players. There's a resource imbalance between Pittsburgh United and neighborhood groups. When community groups challenge our, quote, friendly politicians, Pittsburgh United is unable to really give good support to the community because they have friends in City Hall. Policy advocacy from Pittsburgh United becomes based on more what the friendly politicians will accept. Sometimes we say there's an issue that there's not authentic black leadership or there's a lack of black leadership. There are plenty of black-led organizations in Pittsburgh. Sometimes people speak of training, so-called training authentic black leadership to accept this friendly politician strategy. This is paternalistic, not authentic. The Hill District Consensus Group participates in two different national organizing models. Since 2013, we have been a partner organization of Homes for All, which is a part of the Right to the City Alliance, using a base building model. And we're also a founding member of Pittsburgh United in 2007, which is part of the Partnership for Working Families model, using the coalition model. Both models have merit. One cannot replace the other. However, we have to beware of non-black led intermediaries for black community issues. And we have to understand that black led organizing receives relatively little funding from foundations, and I mean relative in comparison to the coalition funding. Funding development without displacement efforts such as tenant union organizing, community land trusts, and other things should be a priority. Black-led organizing should be funded at comparable levels as coalition-style organizing. I just want to suggest that we all review a recent report that was put out. The title of the report is "The Case for Funding Black-Led Social Change," authored by Susan Taylor Batten, who's the president and CEO of ABFE, a philanthropic partnership for black communities, and Nat Chioke Williams, who's the PhD executive director of the Hill Snowden Foundation. But I think it's important that we really concentrate on funding black-led social change efforts in our neighborhoods, in addition to funding these coalition-type activities. Thank you.